First, the victims of this tragic accident. The NTSB is tasked by the United States Congress with investigating every civil aircraft accident in the United States and its territories overseas. Additionally, under ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, we also have responsibilities for U.S. manufactured products in the aerospace industry. Now, my team and I have just arrived, and as you know, over the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of activity in the area. What we can tell you right now, what we know, is that the aircraft itself, the helicopter, had taken off out of northeast Philly, had flown over to basically report on some Christmas light activity, and then they were returning back to base when the accident occurred. It was a clear, cold night. Preliminary air traffic control data shows that the aircraft was sitting there and it was on course when the accident occurred. Yesterday, the Federal Aviation Administration came out and surveyed the site and did an initial walkthrough of the site, and we have a debris field from the helicopter that's approximately 100 yards long. Additionally, tree strike images show that it was in a descending pattern. In other words, it was descending when it impacted the trees. Now, what my team and I will be doing is we're going to be on scene for about the next 3 days. We'll be looking at both what we call the man, machine, and environmental interface, and we'll be looking at anything that may have either affected the accident flight or may have been causal. That includes things such as we'll be looking at the structure of the helicopter to make sure that nothing fell off the helicopter, that the helicopter structure was intact prior to the impact. We'll be looking at the rotor system, including the main rotor and the tail rotor. We'll be looking at the drive system that drives them, including the transmission and the drive shafts. We'll be looking at the flight control systems also, which control the helicopter in both pitch, roll, and yaw. And basically what that means is the nose of the helicopter going up and down in pitch, the helicopter rolling left and right, and yaw is the helicopter turning left and right. Additionally, we'll be looking at the physiology of the pilot on board. We'll also be looking at the weather conditions to see if they may have affected the aircraft. We'll be looking at the maintenance history of the aircraft. And we'll also be looking at records involving the aircraft's flight that day and the previous flights. At this point, we understand that there were 2 previous flights by the helicopter on that day. Now, my team and I, as I said, will be here for about 3 days. We currently have an engine specialist with us. We have an airframe specialist, which is the helicopter specialist. We have myself, and we're also being assisted by both local, state, county, and federal authorities. So in all, right now we have approximately 8 people that are working this accident. Once we leave the scene, in approximately 10 to 15 days, we'll produce a preliminary report. That preliminary report will have the facts, conditions, and circumstances as we know it in that report. And as we garner more information as we go through this process, we can release information at any time. Now, one of the things that we do is we do not do any type of supposition. Anything that we go ahead and report is factual in nature. Approximately 18 months after that preliminary report is completed, the NTSB will produce a factual report, and along with that factual report will be a docket of materials which support the investigation, including photographs, statements, any types of tests and research that may have been done. Then approximately 30 to 60 days after that, the Safety Board, which are the 5 members that are appointed by the President of the United States, will release a statement of probable cause. Now, at any time during the investigation, if we find anything that's of concern to either the traveling public, the aerospace industry in general, or other industries, we can release recommendations at any time. And at this point, I have time for a few questions.
I just want to clarify, you said you're here for 3 days and then 10 to 15?
Yeah, we'll be here for 3 days, and about 10 to 15 days after we leave the site, we'll produce a preliminary report. Now, during that time, also what will happen is at the end of the 3 days, we'll be moving the wreckage to a secure location where we can go ahead and lay it out in scale, and we can go ahead and examine it more in depth.
You mentioned a debris field of roughly 100 yards. Can you talk about with this terrain, the difficulty over 3 days trying to collect everything and look at all of those parts that you mentioned?
Yeah, right now the challenges that we're facing are this is relatively level land, okay. However, there are a lot of trees in the area, and the temperature conditions. As you know, it's been pretty cold.
Over the 3 days, what are you starting with specifically this morning when you go out there? What will be the main focus?
First thing will be what we call a site walkthrough, and basically what we'll be doing is determining that everything from the helicopter is on site, all the major components.
So we know Black Hawks is helicopters, but there might be memory cards or anything. How do you go about finding that potential data if it had that?
What you're discussing is called non-volatile memory. And what happens is that we'll be looking at the helicopter wreckage and making a determination if there's anything that we can garner off of any of the electronics that are on board.
At this point, can you say if there was a distress call made?
I'm unaware of that at this point.
Do you know if there were any witnesses that may have seen the chopper go down, or is that on your list?
Yes, there are some witnesses.
What was that?
There are some witnesses, and they're currently being interviewed.
Who saw like maybe before and after, or
I couldn't tell you offhand. As I said, we just arrived. So.
Anything in particular that is different than, I don't want to use the word typical, but for lack of word, is there anything different that is presenting itself immediately with this crash?
Not that I'm aware of.
You mentioned you're looking to see that all the parts of the helicopter out there. Can you say even how much of the helicopter is intact at this point?
I couldn't tell you at this point, not until we do what I would call an in-depth site survey, where we can walk through and actually identify everything.
And that is what you're doing.
That is one of the activities we'll be doing today, or starting today, and we'll be continuing.
Is there any high-end technology being used to help you guys out when you're out there, or is it just old-fashioned boots on the ground?
No, we do have some electronic technology that we use also. And with that, I got time for about one more question. Okay, thank you.